Today we're going to talk about the Sigma 16mm F1.4 lens. I bought it about 6 months ago. I've been using it for both photography and videos. So in this review, I would like to share with you what I think about this lens after 6 months. And previously I have already made a review, but that video is more about the combination of this Sigma lens with the Sony ZV-E10. So I'll just leave a link up there so you can check it out if you're interested. At first glance, this lens feels a little chunky, especially when I put it on my tiny Sony ZV-E10. And it weighs about 400 grams. I think it's a little heavier than other wide-angle lenses, but it's not too heavy and the build quality is great. It feels very smooth when you turn the focus ring. Here are some comparison photos with my other lenses, just to give you a reference of how sharp it is. The Sigma 16mm is one of the few lenses that performs greatly even at its largest aperture f1.4. Now I would like to show you some real-life photos so that you can see how sharp it is. This is one of the sharpest photos I took with this lens. You can see the fingerprints, the skin pores clearly, and while looking at this photo, I also want to mention that the minimum focus distance of this lens is very close, about 25 centimeters. So when you put your lens that close to an object, you can get a nice background separation. So in terms of sharpness, I'm very satisfied. If I really have to complain anything, I would probably say that the edges of the photo is slightly not as sharp as in the center, but it doesn't really matter in most situations. There's also not so much to complain about the low light performance. No matter you take photos or videos, the large aperture won't disappoint you. You can see that when you shoot low light in 4K, you can barely notice any noise. And here is a long exposure photo. You can see the beautiful sun stars that you can create with this powerful lens. Let me show you a quick autofocus test. I set both the transition speed and the shift sensor to 4. So when the lighting is good, the autofocus is fast and smooth and accurate. And now I turn off the light and increase the ISO. So you can see sometimes it becomes not as sensitive, but it is still not too bad. 16mm lens on APSC will give you the equivalent of 24mm. So it's actually not very wide. In most situations, you won't notice the distortion unless you are shooting something that is very flat, like a wall, especially with patterns like this. But you can fix part of the distortion during editing. To show you how wide 16mm is, you can look at these two photos. One is shot by the Sigma 16mm lens and the other is at 18mm. So of course you can notice the difference immediately, but it's not really that different. I would say 16mm can give you some extra space without looking unnatural. It is wide in a reasonable way, so it's suitable for realistic architecture or landscape. The second scenario for 16mm lens is vlogging. No matter you are shooting a talking head video or you are showing people what's going on around you, this focal length is wide enough to show the background, and it's especially helpful if you are shooting a video indoors. The third scenario to use a 16mm lens is full body portrait. So when you stand close to the model and takes photos from a low angle, it can stretch the legs and make the model look taller. And again, taller in a realistic way, not in an overwhelming way. One thing that bothers me slightly is that this lens doesn't have in-body stabilization, so you might have to spend more time practicing to hold your camera steadily. But it's not a really serious problem because at 16mm, the shaking won't be obvious. And even if it does, you can easily fix that by using active steady shot or stabilize the footage by using catalyst browse or the stabilization function in DaVinci Resolve. Another thing I heard people complain is the autofocus noise. First, I have to say this doesn't bother me at all, but I will just play it so you can decide whether it's a problem for you or not. Normally, when you are shooting a video, there will be some other noise in the environment, so you probably won't notice the noise from the lens. So here I have listed all the pros and cons I just mentioned, but I also want to add some of my subjective thoughts. So it's probably just me, I don't know, but sometimes I think it's a little bit challenging to make good composition with this lens. First of all, it's a prime lens, so you really have to move your body to find good composition. You can't just zoom in or zoom out, so you are actually compromising the convenience in exchange of better image quality. Second of all, when you're using a wide-angle lens to take portrait or landscape photos, it's very likely that someone will just walk into the frame. So I would recommend using this lens in somewhere that doesn't have a lot of distractions. Otherwise, you will have to stay really close to your subjects that you are shooting in order to avoid any unwanted people or objects to be in the frame, or you will have to crop your image. So when you are in some area where a lot of people are walking around, for example, when you're in a tourist destination or when you are taking street photography, and you can't really go too close to your subject, it kind of becomes very challenging to get good composition. So I will leave a purchase link down in the description box. Feel free to check it out if you're interested. And if you want to know what other wide-angle lenses alternatives to buy for your Sony APSC camera, please check this video out. I have already organized some of the best lenses in different categories. And if you like my video, please give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!